Welcome to the Origin Canine podcast, where we speak to authentic and inspiring voices from the working canine world. Listen to this episode, subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media, and go to origincanine.com. Enjoy the show.
G'day guys. Welcome to another episode of the Origin Canine podcast. We've got yet another American. This podcast is dominated by Americans, bro. But you are my first US Marine. So Mike Dowling, former Marine Corps canine handler. Welcome to the show, bro.
Hoorah, Semper Fi. Thank you.
You even got, when you said before we got on air, you're like, I changed my shirt to a red shirt. And I'm like, I don't know a lot of guys that have a red shirt, but I'm like, I bet you this is a US Marine Corps shirt.
I had to represent,
That's good, bro.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me on. I love what you're doing. I appreciate all your other previous podcasts. I listened and watched them, and it's great. I love that you're getting these stories out, and kudos to you for being consistent and putting this great information out. So it's an honor to be here, and honor to connect with another handler, especially all the way around the world.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's like I was saying offline. Like, that's why I love this podcast, man, because it's just a great way for me to feel connected to the community, especially like I was saying that I left badly, and then I can reach out to guys and be like, let's have a chat, and we'll also record it.
Me too. I love staying connected to the canine world, canine community. It's very therapeutic for me to be connected with guys and gals that have gone through a shared experience. So it's important that we do stuff like this,
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. Right, mate, let's whip into it, dude. So from other podcasts, I'll always start with your childhood, what it was like growing up, and then the influences on you getting into the military, like specifically the Marines and then canine.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Northern California, just across the water from San Francisco, in a city called Richmond. And I had a big family growing up. I was one of 6 kids. My dad was from Ireland. My mom was Mexican. She grew up in Los Angeles. And but growing up, I never had I wasn't aware of any family who had served in the military. I'd heard my grandfather had served, but I didn't really know any details about it. It was never really talked about. And I had a buddy in high school who all he wanted to do was join the Marines, and that's what he did when he got out. And I never really led on too much about my interest, but I was interested as a young, when I was younger, when I was in high school as a teenager. I had thought about joining the military. I just didn't do it right away. I ended up going to college for a couple years, but I just mentally wasn't in a good place in college at that time in my life. I wasn't focused. I didn't really have purpose. I just didn't really, I wasn't really a happy person during that time. And I felt like I needed a big change in life. I felt like I needed to find meaning and purpose in my life. And while I was going to college, there was a Marine in one of my classes, and he kept talking to me. Why aren't you in the? He was in the reserves, so like he was in the Marines, but he was going to school, and so he wasn't fully active. But he kept telling me, he's like, Mike, you should be a Marine. And he was basically he wasn't a recruiter, but he was recruiting me. You know what I mean? And so I ended up leaving college and decided, okay, let me go find out what the Marine Corps is all about. And I went down to the recruiting. I didn't even tell anybody, because I just, once I decide something, once I feel like I want to do something, I just, I got to do it, right? I don't want to regret not doing something that I feel very strongly about doing. And so I decided to join the Marine Corps. Now, when it came to the dogs, I didn't join the Marine. I didn't even know the military dog program existed at that point. I joined in the spring of 2001, right? So this is pre September 11th, 2001, right? That 9/11 had not It had not happened yet. It's peacetime at the time that I enlisted. And but I will say that my family had a strong connection to dogs my whole childhood. We always had just 2 or 3 pet dogs growing up. And one of my favorite things to do, even to this day, actually, is whenever I'm home, is to visit the dog park in my neighborhood. It's called Point Isabel Dog Park. Now, Point Isabel Dog Park is one of the most beautiful dog parks in the world. And I've been to many dog parks. And I just happen to live like a 2 miles from it, right? And it's this dog park on the water with a view of San Francisco, and it's just this big open air, all kind, hill, grassy fields, and the water comes in. The dogs can go in the water, and it's just huge. And there's lots and lots of dogs there. It's really good energy to be there. And so we would bring our dogs there all the time. And then in addition to that, my older sister, she was involved with helping foster guide dogs for the blind. So in addition to our pet dogs, we would also have these dogs in our household that we were fostering to become hopefully guide dogs for the blind. And so I got to observe that as well. And I attended one of the dogs that my sister and our family raised. I went to the graduation and saw this dog be paired up with a blind person and then go on to work with that blind person for the dog's whole life. And then we actually got to adopt that dog back when he retired. So I got to see firsthand the intelligence of dogs and just how valuable they are. I didn't really think that much about it. Like, I just thought it was a really amazing thing to observe, but I didn't realize how big of an influence it had on me when I was that young. Because when I found out about the dogs in the Marine Corps, all that experience and me being around that growing up, it all came back to me like, yeah, I love dogs. I've been around dogs my whole life. That would be amazing to have a dog in the military. So when I enlisted, I joined on what's called an open contract, which is a dumb thing to do. It's not. What that means is I allowed the Marine Corps to choose what job they want to give me, right? And
Yeah, I've heard about this one. Yeah.
and usually they give you jobs that nobody wants. But they gave me the job of MP, military police, right? So I never thought about being an MP, but I was kind of indifferent about it. I'm like, okay, this is fine. I'll be an MP. It's not a big deal. Well, the other thing that happened was 9/11. When I was in boot camp, the events of September 11th happened. So my whole intention of joining the Marines was just to become a better person, was to challenge myself, to get some kind of life experience, and find purpose in my life, right? Well, when 9/11 happened, those events did that and then some and more, right? Because in my mindset, I'm thinking, well, if our country is going to be attacked, I want to go defend the country. So I'm right where I want to be. I want to be in the Marine Corps, training to be a Marine to defend our country, right? So I was thinking, I'm going to join the Marines, have some fun training, and have fun being a Marine. I never expected or anticipated to actually go to war, right? And but that's part of the business, and that's what I signed up for. So hold on one second. Sorry, my dog is hold on one sec. I'm so sorry.
Bro, it's a dog podcast, man. It's all good.
That's so random. I apologize.
What was that, Amazon or something, was it?
I think someone sent me a Christmas gift or whatever it is.
Right.
But of all the times it had to be delivered, it's while I'm getting interviewed on a podcast, right? Anyways, I wasn't expecting anything. Good
Open
job,
it up on the podcast.
What?
Open it up on the podcast.
And, so Okay, apologies. So
No, bro,
just to
all good.
so to get back what I was saying, I never anticipated going to war, never anticipated having to put my life on the line, but I also knew that that was part of the business, that that was part of the contract I signed. So I was totally okay with where I was when 9/11 happened. I was in the Marines, training to be a Marine. Everybody was telling us, get ready to go to war and to combat. And, I had made a decision and I was happy with my decision to join the Marines. And wherever that was going to take me, I accepted that process. You know what I mean? So I was then given the job of military police. Now, at military police school is where I first learned of dogs, because in 2001, yes, there is some information about military dogs out there, but only if you search for it, right? And it's not like it was readily out there. So I never had any exposure to the military dog program. Had no idea it existed until I went to military police school, where they said, as an MP in the Marines, you could become a dog handler. And of course, right away, I immediately gravitated towards it. And that was it. That's what set me on that path. So yeah, really, I joined the Marines to find purpose, get experience in life, challenge myself. When 9/11 happened, I was going to accept whatever was going to happen from that point forward, because I signed up for that, and that's where my life took me at that time. So, and somehow, in some way, I could have been given a terrible job from the Marine Corps because I was open contracts, right? They could have given me whatever job that they wanted to, but luckily somebody had my back and I got MP. And from MP, I got to what I consider the greatest job in the military, dog handler. And but it's very hard to get into, right? It's not like you can just ask for it and they give it to you. You have to earn your spot as a dog handler. And so once I learned that, I had a focus. My focus was to become a dog handler in the Marines. And I was determined. I was so determined that I graduated as the honor grad of my military police class, right? And I was the top graduate, because I wanted, no doubt, that I earned my spot, So when I graduated MP school, I had asked for a dog handler, and they awarded that to me. So then after MP school, I went off to become a dog handler.
Nice, man. And when you were, oh God, I've put my headphones on some sort of weird speaker mode. You still hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm using new headphones, new tablet, using Zoom, and I'm like, I just all of a sudden was like, I can hear everything around me. Fan going, the aircon. As long as it's not mucking with the audio. Yeah, so mate, like September 11, if you're in boot camp, what did you actually do, like when that happened? Did they just like, all right, Marines, line up, this is what's going on in the world, you guys start taking this more seriously? Or was it just like you saw it on TV in the chow hall? What was that? What did they do?
Well, that's a good question. Okay, so I was in boot camp when 9/11 happened, right? And when they told us, now I'm in San Diego, so I'm on the west coast of the United States. New York is on the east coast, and it's 3 hours ahead of us, right? So
Yeah.
I bring that up because when the towers were getting attacked, I think it started at like 8:30 in the morning or something like in New York, which is like 5:30 in the morning for us. So we're barely waking up. And we get up, we form in our platoon, and we're about to step off to go to breakfast. And our drill instructors got word of what was happening. We don't go to breakfast. They bring us back inside, and they tell us what's happening. They didn't show us the TV. They didn't show us anything. They just said, hey, our country is being attacked right now. The Twin Towers in New York are being attacked. And we thought they were messing with us. We didn't believe them. We were, first of all, we're half asleep, half waking up, and we're just like, what? Our country? Like, it just felt like some kind of mind game that they do to you in boot camp to mess with you, you know? And so we were just like, yeah, whatever, basically, right?
Yeah, you're like, oh, this happens every boot camp. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, oh, the old September 11 trick, hey?
We're just, are you going to take us to breakfast or not? You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
it wasn't until the senior drill instructor, the guy in charge, he wasn't supposed to be there. He came back and he informed us what was going on. And we realized, oh, this is serious business. And then the commanding officer came down. Like, all these people who are never around were now around, all the leadership, right?
Yeah.
And then they asked, who has family in New York? Does anybody have family in New York City? And a few people raised their hands. It's like, oh, you guys come to the front right now, because they wanted to learn, hey, do you have family that's in the towers? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once we, but they never showed us footage on TV, right? They just said this is happening. And once we realized that this was real, it was just like, it was just very surreal. We didn't really know how to react, to be honest with you. We're just kind of like, this is wild that this is happening right now. And then you're allowed mail in boot camp. So my dad, my family, they sent newspaper clippings in the mail. So I saw all the newspaper clippings, but I never saw the footage. They never rolled out the TV to show us or nothing. And
Yeah.
but it was serious stuff. And actually the scariest thing was, or the kind of the most eerie thing about it was, the Marine Corps boot camp is right next to the airport in San Diego. And so there's planes that are landing and taking off above our heads constantly, right?
Yeah.
The airport shut down. And so it was dead quiet, right? We're used to loud planes every 5 minutes right over our heads. The airport was shut down. So now there's like this eerie quietness for the next couple of days. And then they started mentally, okay, get ready for war. Like, you think you were just training to be a Marine? Now you're training to go to war. Like, legit, this is happening. So don't just go through the motions. Your life is going to depend on it. And so now we're training with a purpose. I mean, we were already, but even more so now, right? And so yeah, shit got real. It got real quick. And it was just a wild time. And there's a part of me that felt like I was like destined to be there. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be here at this time right now to be doing what I'm doing, you know? And yeah, I don't know. The training got very real very quickly. And so now we're training with the purpose. Yeah. And so fast forward, I get awarded the dog handler position, and I was really excited about it. I was beyond excited about it, actually. Like, I knew that having a dog was going to be something I was going to enjoy while I was in the Marine Corps. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's just to round out that September 11 thing. Was it too real for anyone? Did anyone just go, okay, see ya, I'm going back to college to study feminist dance therapy or something like that?
No, I don't remember any. I remember everybody was just
Dialed in.
dialed in. Yeah, everybody was just like, okay, well, this is what we signed up for. So
Yeah, good, man.
yeah, so let's yeah, I don't recall people trying to leave or make excuses to get out of the military, or you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. We were just dialed in. We were just training with a purpose. That's what it felt like.
Nice, man. So then you finished your boot camp. You obviously then go on to your military police schooling. Like that's we would call it a course in Australia. You guys call it school. You go to your military police school, and you obviously become aware of the dog aspect of the job. Are you straight on to dog school, or are you like go be an MP for a little bit and then be like, all right, you can put your hand up for the course, Mike?
Yeah, so in the Marine Corps at that time, uh, you can request to be a dog handler while you're going to military police school, and you got to go through a process of being awarded that position. So if you are given the the job of dog handler, then at that time you went straight from military police school directly to the dog handler course to learn how to work with military dogs. So I went from boot camp to military police school, or MCT in the Marines, a short combat training, boot camp, MCT, military police school, and then to military working dog handlers course at San Antonio, Texas. So I've been a student for several months at this point, and then finally, after going through the military dog handlers course, that's when I finally get assigned into the Marine Corps fleet. And by the way,
Yeah.
military dog handlers course was great. I loved every minute of it. It was, they had all these huge kennels with hundreds of dogs, and it was a very small class, so that you got a lot of attention. The instructors worked hand in hand. You got a dog like almost right away. I think there's like a couple of days where you don't have a dog, but then you're given a training dog almost right away, and then you're working with the dog pretty much the whole time you're in school. And I was loving every second of it. I loved my class. I loved my instructors. I love the base, Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. I was just really loving life. Like, I was really happy to be a Marine. I was happy to be a dog handler. I was happy to be doing what I was doing in life. And yeah, I was in a really good place mentally at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And in terms of like the motivation for your MP dog stuff, obviously you've got this sort of intrinsic version, which is you found that there's this very interesting job, and you've got all this previous experience with dogs when you're with your family and growing up and whatnot. In terms of the application and your eventual like, where am I going to be? Are you looking at stuff like, and this is my only frame of reference for US Marines in particular, like Iwo Jima, Okinawa, MP with big Dobermans kind of stuff, and then like Vietnam trackers? Is that the sort of stuff that's going through your head?
Not really, because I didn't really know the history of the war dog program at that time,
Yeah.
right? I had heard that there were dogs in Vietnam. I heard that there were dogs in World War II, but I didn't really know much beyond that. And at the schoolhouse, they didn't really teach you that much about the history of the war dog program. You just got right into how to handle a military dog. You know what I mean? But eventually I figured, I'm interested in the history of the program. I like to learn about how the program has evolved and where it came from. So thankfully, there's books out there. There's knowledge out there that you can access that tells you what happened. So to answer your question, I'm just focused on what's right in front of me, which is a German Shepherd or a Belgian Malinois dog, right? Going through the course and just soaking up whatever knowledge I need. It wasn't until I got to the fleet in the Marines when I started learning about how impactful military dogs were in the past, and how successful they were, and how we have big shoes to fill as a current generation, because our previous generation of dog teams that served in combat did extremely well, right? And so I took that as a huge responsibility, and I was really, I was happy to take that on. Like, yeah, so not only am I happy to be a dog handler, but now I'm happy to learn that military dog teams throughout the course of the program since it started have been very successful. So I'm part of, a lineage that has had a big track record of success. And I wanted to contribute to that success. I wanted to be part of it and help it grow and add to it. So yeah, it's just kind of everything fell in line for me personally in terms of what I was doing, where I was, and the kind of information I was soaking in about the dogs and the history of it, you know?
Yeah, man. So, in terms of the application of a Marine Corps military police dog, what are they actually used for? Because at least historically, from what I can gather, that's why I referenced, Iwo Jima, Okinawa sort of thing. They were kind of up there on the front line, right? They weren't like, just arresting bad guys that were drinking in the lines. They were doing stuff in combat. Is that correct?
Yeah. So yes, you're correct. When the dogs first started in the Marines and really in the military, their purpose was to protect bases, like be sentry dogs, but also to be on the front lines, to detect, to alert to ambushes, to alert to mines, booby traps, all those things. So, and on Iwo Jima, that was their purpose, was to alert the Marines to potential ambushes, people, the enemy hiding from them, right? Because that's what the dogs are for. They're there. The dogs are to alert you to danger that you can't see as a handler, right? Dogs can sense it. They can smell it. They can detect it. They can, through their senses, which are way better than our senses, right? So that's what they were used for in Vietnam and World War II. Now, when I became a handler, we weren't really doing that anymore, right? It's kind of switched from these dogs serving in war to now we're just military policemen with dogs on a base, kind of just like a normal civilian police out in town, right? We're conducting security operations, anti-terrorism operations on the base. And when dogs deployed, it was mainly just to secure, like to do perimeter searches, to be at the gate, at the entry points of the bases overseas, to be a force, a protection force. So, but we weren't really doing on the front line type missions like like the dog teams were previously.
Yeah,
So when I was a dog handler, we were just focused on searching vehicles that came onto the base. We would do we would clear the barracks or housing or yeah, a lot of base type security operations. We weren't really training to be on front lines. We weren't really training to be in combat. So the mindset, we had to shift our mindset. We had to shift our training to go back to that mindset of being dog teams at war, being dog teams on the front lines. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah. And what was sort of methodology you were using back then? Was it real like, Keeler method choke chain sort of stuff, or was there a bit of food involved? What was the methodology like?
Well, the Marines like dogs that bite, right? That's one thing.
Angry
That's
dogs.
one thing about the Marine Corps is they wanted dogs that were dual certified in both patrol, like biting, apprehension, searching, and detection, right? Either detecting explosives or narcotics, right? The
Yeah,
dogs had to be able to do both. And so yes, we had choke chains and leather collars and a 6-foot lead, and that was it. Those are the tools of a dog and a Kong and a reward toy, right? The tools of a handler is a reward in the Kong, choke chain, leather collar, 6-foot lead, right? And and you could do a lot with just those things, and your voice and your praise and the energy that you bring to work every day as a handler. So I was really lucky to be assigned to Camp Pendleton K9. Camp Pendleton is a base in San Diego. It's a very big historic Marine Corps base. And at the time that I got there, the K9 unit, I loved it. The handlers there were very serious about dog training. They were very serious about being good Marines. Now, what's funny is they got in trouble for being bad Marines later on, but internally, I thought that I was really soaking up what they were doing, which was they came to work with a purpose every day to make their dogs the best that they can be. And I just loved that. I wanted to be a great handler because I observed them being great handlers. And so in terms of the training methodology, it's pretty consistent across the whole military, right? You get taught the basics at military dog handler course as a new handler. When you go to your unit, that's when you really learn dog handling, right? Because
Yeah.
now you're with handlers. You're no longer in a student environment. You're in a real canine unit, and your chief trainer, your kennel master, the other handlers in the unit, you all have to support each other and give each other knowledge and experience and help each other out. And thankfully, the unit that I was with as a new young Marine handler was really good about specifically dog training. They were amazing dog trainers. And what applies to one dog doesn't apply to all dogs sometimes, right? You have to read your dog just like a human being, right? Dogs are emotional they have emotions and feelings as well, right? And you just need to be able to positively manipulate their feelings and emotions to do the things you want them to do. And you pick up those tricks, the more you're around experienced handlers and see what they do. So that's what I was doing.
Yeah. And that's a good point you bring up about that, the emotions and that positive aspect of how to train a dog. I've always been of the opinion, at least for the most part, that the dogs are a metaphor for us. But I know that you as a handler would probably treat that dog very differently than, say, the Marine Corps might treat you. Is because I know that the Marine Corps, you guys are pretty big on the like, just do it because, so yes, sir, kind of stuff, like in some parts of the Marines. Um, were you ever at odds with the way you train your dog versus the way the Marine Corps would train you?
So I'm laughing because the dogs would get treated better than young Marines. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're a young Marine handler, you're not treated very well, right? You got to earn your spot in the unit. You got to show that you can take the pressure, you can take the heat, right? People, when you're a new handler in a unit, it's very common that the other Marines are going to test you. They want to make sure that you're going to survive in their unit, that you're going to make their unit look good. And they didn't make it easy on me or any of the other handlers. Now, I didn't feel like it was too unbearable or too, it's just the Marines. You're supposed to be tough and all this stuff. But they treated their dogs like they had tremendous respect for their dogs. And it showed. And the handlers, when we train the dogs every day, there's required training. And then there's time where you choose to be with your dog or not to be with your dog, right? There's free time where you can be off doing other things. I would say the majority of the handlers were always with their dogs, even during the downtime, right? Just constantly building that rapport, building that bond, building that relationship, right? Because the foundation of training comes from obedience, comes from your relationship with your dog. If you want your dog to excel and be able to do more high-speed activities and be able to be reliable in tough situations, that dog needs to know that they can trust you. That dog needs to know that that you're going to do what you need to do for them, right? And these handlers, I observed them with their dogs nonstop. Now, as a young handler, young Marine, I'm forced to clean the kennels, feed the dogs, clean the office, just all the grunt work type stuff. You know what I mean? And I was happy with that because I knew that I was supporting the greater good of the unit as a young handler. So to answer your question, those dogs are treated like royalty in some situations. Like, I mean, some handlers would be like, don't don't you touch my fucking dog. That's my fucking dog.
Yeah.
And be very territorial about their dog, you know? And but in a good way, in a good, healthy way. And so I was all about that. I was just really, I love the mindset that they had. I love the dedication to training dogs that our unit had. And I wanted to uh I wanted to have that as well. The more that I grew, I wanted to be dedicated to dog training. I wanted to be dedicated to my dog, to the unit. And yeah, I was motivated. I was as motivated as you could be as a young Marine handler.
Yeah. And so on base, day to day MP canine handler activities, you sort of alluded to it before, you're searching vehicles, that type of stuff, perimeter patrols. Were you ever in, I'm not sure what you guys call, I think you guys call it the barracks, in the barracks dealing with drunk Marines, people that jumping over the fence? Is that sort of stuff you were doing as well?
Yeah, all the time. And yeah,
Because Marines are known for their extracurricular activities, am I right?
yeah. So the thing was, when you're a dog handler, that's a position of privilege that can be taken away. So if you want to go screw up as a Marine, there's risk to that, right? Now, some handlers did that stuff and maybe they got in trouble or maybe they got away with stuff. I never wanted to risk my role as a dog handler. I loved being a dog handler, and I was one of those Marines that I really didn't get into trouble. I didn't put myself in a position to get into trouble. I kind of stayed away from a lot of that extracurricular type stuff off duty. Now, Marines who aren't dog handlers, just the general Marines on the base, Marines get in trouble all the time for stuff. You know what I mean? And we have to show up with the dogs, you know, to go handle business. And that was a daily thing. So yeah, every day on base, we always had dog teams that were on duty, that went to calls on the base, that they went to the gates while we were out training. They were out on the base handling business, making sure that the base was secure and Marines were behaving.
Which they don't often do, right?
Right.
Yeah. So 2001, obviously you're doing your boot camp, you come out, you've done your courses, you're now a Marine Corps canine handler. At what point obviously 2003, but like when Iraq's kicked off, at what point are they like, all right, Mike, you and your dog, you're going?
Right. So while I was at Camp Pendleton, Afghanistan kicked off earlier than Iraq did, right? Afghanistan kicked off right away. But it didn't feel like we were, and dog teams were getting sent to Afghanistan, but we wouldn't hear about any combat activity with dog teams. You know what I mean? Iraq kicked off in 2003, March in 2003. So I was at Camp Pendleton. I got assigned to Camp Pendleton in the spring of 2002 is when I got there, spring of 2002. And then I was a young Marine handler for a few months. And then we had a big changeover in the unit, right? The senior handlers at Camp Pendleton, they got in trouble for some stuff and they got kicked out, right? It is what it is. I was a young Marine. I was allowed to stay in the unit, and we had a new leadership change, right? And at that point is when I got Rex, my dog, military working dog Rex, Echo 168, his tattoo number. He came in the fall or winter time of 2002, right? Toward the fall, winter of 2002. And we got certified as a team, I think it was January 2003 or December 2003. Yeah, around that time frame. But when I was working with Rex, and by the way, Rex is an amazing dog. He's a beautiful German Shepherd. He arrived at Camp Pendleton when he was 1.5 years old. He was very young, but they did a good job in training him at Lackland Air Force Base. He came with a lot of good, raw, instinctive skill sets and training. And so I was really excited to work with him because he was really high energy, and it was just a matter of channeling his energy in the right way. And so I was really lucky to get a great dog like Rex. And then we were just trying to be a good dog team. I wasn't trying to, yes, these wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, were happening, but I was trying to get the basics down of being a good Marine and a good dog handler. So I wasn't really focused on on the combat stuff yet. I just wanted to be able, to show up to work every day and feel like Rex and I had a great rapport and were working as a great dog team, which we were. And that's what I was dedicated to. I was really just dedicated to making Rex as great as he could be and pushing myself to be as good as I could be for him. And pushing each other. I had great Marines with me, Adam Can, Jason Cannon, all these Sergeant Amato. I had great Marines in my unit that I was working with. So we were just kind of all feeding off of each other to be great dog teams. Now, I finally got word about deploying a year after I had Rex. So I was with Rex for a good solid year at that point, and we had became a really good team. We had a super, Rex was in his prime. I felt like I was really kind of on the come up as a Marine handler, just motivated and dedicated to what I was doing. And I was really confident in who I was and who Rex was. And I was really confident in together that we could accomplish anything. It felt like we could take anything on, right? Because Rex was such a great dog to work with. So a year after us being together, our kennel master, his name is Greg Massey, great Marine, great guy, great leader. He said that he got word that we're going to start sending teams to Iraq, right? And so he told me, he pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about sending you and Rex." And I said, "Great, let's go. Let's do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, let's do this." So that was around, I think, winter 2003, right? So the war started in spring 2003, like March 2003. And I deployed with Rex along with a group of other Marine dog teams. Now, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton. They brought in a dog teams from other Marine Corps bases, Hawaii, up and down the West Coast, even Japan. They all came to Camp Pendleton, and we all trained together at Camp Pendleton for about a month. And then we deployed together in March 2004, 1 year after the invasion of Iraq, right? So the thing about our deployment was that no other Marine dog teams had deployed to Iraq before us, right? And the teams that went to Afghanistan before us, we just heard that they just did a lot of perimeter searches, gate security, stuff like that. We never really heard about any combat action type of operations that dog teams were doing. With our deployment, they made a point to tell us, "Hey, when you go to Iraq, try and get out there, get on the front lines." Because IEDs, the bombs, were becoming the biggest threat at that time, just bombs everywhere, right? And our dogs could detect explosives. That's what they were trained in, right? So yes, they wanted us to be perimeter security and at the gates and protecting the bases, but they also wanted us protecting the Marines on the front lines by finding explosives and bombs and caches of ammunition and explosives. So they told us, "Hey, you get out there as much as you can off the base, and let's see if these dogs can work in Iraq," right? This is a completely different environment that we're not used to operating in. So we were kind of just ready for the unknown because nobody had really gone before us to do in that area. And so we didn't really have the advantage of having previous knowledge from previous deployments. We were the first ones out there, like, you know what I mean? And and so we just had to be ready for anything and anything and everything. And that's what happened. Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously for context, around that 2004 time, and I'm not exactly sure strategically um, the impetus for Fallujah was, but I know around that time there was that Nicholas Berg beheading video. He was a contractor, and I think it was Al Zakawi. They call him AMZ, I think was his sort of acronym.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So when you guys are you in country when this is happening?
I don't remember the beheading, but I do remember. Are you familiar with Blackwater, the contracting company?
Yeah.
There was the private security company. They were called Blackwater at the time. They had private contractors, and they were on a convoy in the city of Fallujah. And this, I think, was in March or April of 2004. So I was there. I had just got to Iraq, like right as that happened. And these guys got attacked, and they were hung on a bridge, burned, hung on a bridge, photos, videos all over the media. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Marine unit that I was with was right outside Fallujah when that happened. We were so close to it, right? And so to answer your question, yeah, shit was going down the second I got to Iraq. It was it was really it was really a volatile situation. The second I got to the unit that I was assigned to with Rex, um, there was a Marine was killed in the unit that I was assigned to almost the same day I got assigned to them. Like they were getting into it every single day. And when we saw those images of the private contractors, you know, we were just we wanted to get some. Like we were like, let's go get them. Let's, we're right here. Let's go, let's get some. That now these are the Marines that I'm with, right? I'm just trying to focus on being a good dog team and providing the value that my dog and I provide to them, which is detecting explosives and helping alert them to danger, right? All this combat stuff, that's what I'm with a experienced Marine infantry unit called 22, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines. And they were part of the invasion in 2003. So they were already they had familiarity with Iraq. They were part of the invasion. They came home, and now they're back for their second deployment for some more. This is my first time there. So when I learned that, I was really happy to be with them because these guys were already combat hardened Marines. They were experienced, and they didn't mess around. And when you're around that environment, you kind of soak in that mentality. You kind of absorb that energy. And
It's
these
hard not
guys
to
were,
level up with them, right?
yeah, these guys, they were real. I mean, the best way that I could describe these Marines that I was assigned to is professional warfighters. These guys were professional warfighters. And I just wanted to keep up, right? I wanted them to be able to rely on me when they needed to rely on me. And so when I went out there with them on missions and these operations, yeah, I was scared, or yeah, I felt inexperienced. I felt a lot of things, right? But you got to overcome that type of stuff and just focus on the task at hand. And so so that's what we did. But to answer your question, it was as soon as I got sent there, it was really violent, dangerous. It was very public, right? All this imagery was all over the
Yeah.
media. There's a lot of bloodshed everywhere. And we were right in the middle of all of that.
Yeah. So, mate, can you talk me through like getting outside the wire for the first time with these guys? Can you give us an idea about like your experience outside the wire on a typical patrol, um, from your perspective as a dog handler?
Sure. So when I was there with the Marines that I was with, the dog teams that I was with, we had great dog teams that were in Iraq at that time, but we all got separated. I was with this unit over here. These dog teams were over here, but I also knew that they were great dog teams, right? So I was trying to be a good, reliable dog team with the Marines I was with, and we needed to figure out how to work together, right? So when I first got assigned to them, I was mainly just doing perimeter searches. I wasn't really leaving the base. I wasn't going outside the wire, but it was very active outside the wire, right? You could hear the firefights, you can hear the explosions, you can see wounded Marines coming back to the base. Shit's going down. And so I know that Rex and I can provide a service by hopefully detecting explosives. So I had to become an advocate for myself and for Rex, because these guys didn't know me. I didn't know any of these Marines. We got assigned to a unit that was in a really dangerous area, and we never met any of these guys. We just showed up and said, hey, we're here to help you. Now, looking at it from their perspective, they're like, well, you know, who are you, right? How can you help us? Don't get in our way. You know what I mean? And but thankfully, they gave us a chance. They gave us a shot to go out with them. And the first mission that we went on was a very tough mission. We ended up doing a big, we ended up raiding a safe house for insurgents out in town, right? And it was during the middle of the night. Rex and I had to overcome a lot of challenges, but we did that. It was a safe house. There were some bad guys there. The Marines secured the building. Now, this is where, as a handler, it's very important to understand that you might be put in a situation to where you can't rely on your leadership. You can't rely on anybody else but yourself to do the right thing and to communicate to the Marines that you're working with what your value is. You know what I mean? So they were like, Mike, or Dowling, we call each other by our last names. They're like, Dowling, how do you see yourself and Rex in this situation? And I just said, well, secure the building. Rex and I will do a perimeter search, and then we'll clear the building when it's secure. And that's exactly what we did, right? And it was a successful mission. But the most important part of the whole process was the Marines observed Rex and I working and saw that we could be successful, because we did find some weapons that were hidden in some kind of like storage closet or whatever it was. And it wasn't like a big cachet find, but it was enough to show the Marines, hey, this dog team knows what it's doing and they can be helpful, right? So that was my first mission. Every day after that, it felt like we were on patrols. And what was a normal patrol like? There were no normal patrols. Every patrol was different, right? Because there was always something new that was being presented as a challenge. One of the big challenges that I faced on patrols were stray dogs. There were so many stray dogs in Iraq, and that can affect your dog tremendously, right? Because especially my dog Rex, because he's a dog fighter, he's going to fight other dogs, and they're just everywhere. Yeah, so you know, just something that's, because these Marines, they see stray dogs all the time, but now they need to change how they work just a little bit and keep these dogs away to protect the asset, which is my dog, to make sure that he's not distracted and can work properly. Now, things that we would do all the time on patrols is to search for explosives and search for IEDs. So yes, IEDs were going off all the time. And when I was with the Marines on patrol, we would come to areas where they would feel it was a high probability that there could be an IED in the road or hidden somewhere. And so I would walk out in front of the Marines with my dog and search and go clear the road, go clear the way, make it safe for the Marines. Now, that's a lot of pressure as a handler, right? Because it's like, and by the way, as you're clearing the road or clearing the bridge or the alley, whatever it is you need to clear, some of these roads already have IED blasts, holes in them from previous IEDs. And it's like, that's kind of unnerving to see that when you're walking up to these things, because it's like, well, there could be another one planted here or whatever, And so that was the most common thing that I was doing. No matter what patrols they were, the most common thing that we were doing was searching for IEDs. That was the whole reason we were out there. And so we would go out in front and lead the way. We would lead the Marine patrol down through the alley, over the bridge, past this dirt road, over the highway, whatever piece of, whatever place we needed to get through, Rex would clear it first. And then we would move on. So, and there were times where Rex alerted. And but what's funny is some of those times we weren't actively searching. We were just walking. And it wasn't like, hey, dog team up, come clear this path. We were just, I remember this one patrol, they were actually kind of like raiding this whole little area of this neighborhood. And I was just walking around with Rex to go link up with some Marines. And while we were walking around, he shows a change of behavior, right? His nose picks up a scent, and he takes me to this little brush area, and he alerts in the brush, right? And I look at it and I don't see anything right away. But one of the other Marines sees that Rex alerted, and I call him over. So we bring over some guys just to check it out. And there was a little cache of det cord, right? Explosives hidden in this brush underneath the dirt, right? And like this, in this bag. It wasn't buried too deep. It was buried just enough to where they could easily access it. But the point is sometimes Rex would show a change of behavior when I'm not even focusing on searching, right? Like he's always working, regardless if you're telling him to work or not. His nose, if it picks it up, that's what he's trained to do, is to take you to the odor. And so, so on a daily patrol, and sometimes it's nightly patrols, right? We would go out during the day, go out during the night. And a patrol is, you're just walking through the city or walking through this area, and you're just making sure, you're just keeping the bad guys away. You're showing a presence, right? You're keeping a presence is what it is. But it quickly turned from patrols to raids. We would raid houses all the time because we would get intel that there's bad guys over here, or there's bad guys in these houses or in this area. And so it went from patrols to we went on raids pretty regular, and to find to search the buildings that these guys were hiding in, stuff like that. And so but I was there for it. Like, I'm just like, yeah, patrols, raids, perimeters, or whatever it is you guys need me to do, let's do it. I'm ready. And Rex, he was a great dog. He had such good energy every day. Every day he was ready to go. It got really hot. He had to acclimate to the heat. But once he got acclimated, and I had to observe him take a lot of water, make sure he was hydrated, because it would get up to 115 degrees, 120 degrees sometimes, like, because we got there in the spring and now we're going into summer, and it was really hot. The heat exposure was brutal, So you think about how dangerous it is to be on a patrol or a raid, but things that are also dangerous for your dog are the weather, right? Or other animals that are infected, or just, toxic water, things that you might not think about outside of the combat realm. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
And that's just, you as a handler, you have to be constantly observing and aware of the environment around you and your dog, So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, but
No, this podcast about you, bro. So you were talking about the like the clearing and stuff before. probably a two-part question, I guess. Did you have engineers with you as well? And then what did you do when you did find an IED?
So the answer is yes and no. So sometimes we had engineers, sometimes we didn't, right?
Okay.
And the engineers, by the way, they found stuff all the time. Their metal detectors constantly were going off. They found buried RPGs, ammunition, all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? And I was with them sometimes because they would say, "Hey, we need to clear this whole field," and they would send out the engineers and the dog team to go clear it out just to find anything. But I would say the majority of the time I wasn't with engineers. I was just with the grunts. I was with the infantry guys on the missions, patrols that they were doing. But yes, I was there with engineers sometimes. Now, if we found something, we would just mark it and wait for EOD, the bomb guys, to come out and do what they do, blow it up or take it back or whatever, disarm it. If it was an IED, if it was ammunition, they would usually just blow it up, actually, is what they would do.
Yeah.
But we would just mark it. We would observe where it's at, and then we would cordon off the area, and we would call out EOD, and they would come handle business.
And how often is that happening? Because I know that, mate, every time you found an IED, right, I've heard it was DJ Shipley, ex-SEAL guy, he said at that time in the war, you could throw a rock and just hit an IED. So, like, every 5 minutes, you guys are sitting, marking it, set up a cordon, EOD, come forward. Is that the sort of pattern of a patrol when you found an IED?
Finding IEDs were constant, right? Now, Rex and I, we actually didn't find a lot of IEDs. We did find some. We found more caches than IEDs, probably. Cache, like hidden explosives and weapons, right? But in terms of an actual IED, yes, we did locate a few of them. But other Marines on other patrols, because when I was out with Rex, I'm just on one patrol. We had dozens of patrols out every day at the same time around the city. You know what I mean? And and so IEDs were being, regardless of me and Rex, they were being found every day by other Marines. So it was regular, yeah, constant. We had a constant. The operational tempo was very high every day. It felt, sometimes it would die down a little bit, but not for long,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really just high stress all the time. So, but you get acclimated to that type of environment after so long, So, and also, I'm making friends as more time goes on. So it's not just about protecting Marines. I'm out there with my friends now, trying to keep them safe. And it's like I'm even more dedicated to what I'm doing than I was before, because now I'm building relationships with these Marines around me who are great guys. And I want them to rely on us to do what we need to do. So yeah, man, it was just kind of every day you didn't know what was going to happen. You know what I mean? You didn't know if that was going to be the day, So our unit 2-2, they had a lot of casualties during my deployment. A lot of guys got wounded. I mean, a lot, over 100 guys.
Yes.
And, I would see this stuff on a daily basis, right? I wasn't there for that long, like what, 6-7 months. My deployment was like 6-7 months. And in that time frame, we had well over 150 guys wounded in some degree,
Yeah.
And I look back on it and I just feel so lucky, man. Like, I didn't think about, am I going to get hit? Am I going to get blown up? Am I going to get wounded today? I mean, yeah. Okay. Yes, I did think about it, but as soon as I thought about it, I tried to stop thinking about it. I didn't dwell on it. I just focused on trying to be a good Marine and a good dog team, because what's going to happen is going to happen. Like, just allow the process to play out. And all I could do is control my training and awareness to the best that I could. And that's all I could control. Whatever else happens is going to happen. So I just kind of accepted. I would see all this stuff with the Marines, and we would be in firefights. They would be engaging, insurgents, right? And it gave me confidence to see them act like they knew what to do under attack in these really volatile situations. I wouldn't know what to do sometimes, but I would look around and they knew exactly what to do. And I would just follow along with them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and that gave me confidence in knowing that they were confident in doing what they do. So my job at that point is just to stay alive, is to keep Rex at a harm's way, keep him out of danger, right? There were times where I could run up and be part of the firefight and engage the enemy, but they told me that wasn't my mission. My mission is to keep Rex alive, because he's such a valuable asset to the whole unit, right? And let the infantry guys do what they do. And so that's what I did, and yeah, it was just kind of, it was both unpredictable and predictable, meaning that every day anything can happen. You know what I mean? And you don't even have to leave the base for it to happen, because the base would get attacked sometimes too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you're in an environment where literally at any time anything can happen. And so you just kind of accept that you're there, and you just kind of focus on what you need to do to survive. And yeah.
So your AO, your area of operations, that was Fallujah, right?
What? Yeah. Well, at one point it was, and then another point it wasn't. So our initial AO was a city called Mahmadiyah, which is it's a city just east, I want to say, of Fallujah. And
Yep.
Mahmadiyah and Lusafia, these were really dangerous areas right outside Fallujah. And then when the first battle of Fallujah kicked off in the spring of 2004, they brought our unit from Mahmadiyah over to Fallujah, and we were part of that battle. So we were in Fallujah for the first battle of Fallujah. And once the first battle of Fallujah ended, my unit went back to Mahmadiyah for that area for the remainder of our deployment. Yeah. And there were other dog teams with other units. There were multiple Marine Corps infantry battalions in the first battle of Fallujah. I was with one battalion. There was other dog teams with other battalions. So there were Marine dog teams out there. We were all there. We were all getting some. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask. So like when you transitioned from Mahmadiyah into the actual Battle of Fallujah, can you just walk us through like sort of day dot? Because I've read a lot about Fallujah, and I've read a bit about David Fallujah, the US Army guy that got the Medal of Honor. I read his book. That was fascinating, man. Can you just talk us through that sort of demarcation process when it was like, all right, guys, today's day one, we're moving into Fallujah, and then what it was like during the battle?
My very first day in Fallujah was the biggest battle that I was in my whole deployment. my very first day in Fallujah, it went off. They pulled us out of Mahmadiyah. They brought us to Camp Fallujah, which was a really big base in Fallujah. But my unit, we left because my unit wanted to have maintain a presence inside the city that we can stage our patrols from every day, right? Our operations. So instead of in the rear on the base, my unit went into the city to stage and do operations, and I went with them. Now, other units were setting up in other parts of the city, in other areas, right? And they were already and they got there, they set up before our unit did. So it was already, the battle was already, had already started, you know?
Yeah.
And you can hear it, you can hear the gunfire going off day and night. And then they pull us out of Mamadea. We go to Camp Fallujah. We're there for a very short period of time. And then they say, hey, get your stuff, be prepared to be out in the field for a considerable amount of time. And we're going to stage in Fallujah, in the off the base into the actual city. So we rolled out into this area that they were staging out of. And as soon as we pulled up, we had all these insurgents open up on us. Now, the firefights that I was in with Rex throughout my deployment, the majority of them, when it happened, I was with about 1 or 2 squads of Marines, right? Maybe a company. This first firefight, and when we went out into Fallujah the first day, it was the whole battalion. The whole battalion. I'm talking hundreds of Marines. And I jumped out of the vehicle. I'm at the and that's the other thing. Rex and I, whenever we went on convoys, we always rode in the very first vehicle, because sometimes we would come across sketchy areas. They would want us to jump out, search, clear, jump back in, and we're on our way, right? So when we pulled up to this area that we were going to stage from, there was already a team of Marines there that was waiting for us. So there were some Marines that were already there, and then the rest of the battalion was driving up. And as soon as we got there, they just opened up. They just opened up on the whole area. It was hundreds of insurgents versus hundreds of Marines.
Yeah.
And it lasted for a couple hours. We jumped out the vehicle and we jumped into a like a berm on the side of the road. So all the whole engagement was coming from this one area of the city, but over here it was kind of safe. And Rex and I just maneuvered into that safe area, and I was just basically taking cover. I was taking cover, but I can observe what's going on. And these Marines were just getting it. It started in the afternoon, lasted for a couple hours in the afternoon. And it got to the point to where we had air support come in, dropping bombs on these guys. We had tanks that were with us that were destroying building after building. It was just a full-on scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And now once air support comes in, it's the end, right? Like once they start leveling the buildings, that's when they scatter, right? And the air support, they didn't come in until much later in the fight. So it lasted for a while. When it finished, we stayed there and we slept there for the next couple nights. And we went on patrols with the Marines into the city of Fallujah. And again, these Marines would get attacked. But by this time, the insurgents, that very first day, they attacked and they stayed there. They kept attacking. On the days that came after that, they would attack us, but then run shortly after, because we just had much superior firepower. You know what I mean? So they would try and catch us off guard. And then as soon as we were organized, they would scatter, if that makes sense, you know? We did lose a Marine in Fallujah. Mortar landed on him. It was really dangerous. It was really dangerous. And that same bridge that those guys were burned and hung from, the Blackwater guys, I had to go clear that bridge with Rex.
Shit.
Yeah. And because they wanted to pass over that bridge into the city, and we had to clear it to make sure that there was no bombs anywhere along the way. And so now I'm walking down this bridge where all this carnage took place just a few weeks before. You know what I mean? And it was a really eerie feeling to have that happen. And eventually we were on this, we did a clearing mission, and they dropped mortars on me and Rex, but they missed. Like the mortars landed far enough to where they weren't close, right?
Yeah.
But right away, we start putting on our protective vest and start putting up a defensive position. And at the same time we were getting attacked, some Marines across the way, a sniper team was getting attacked, right? And our team decided to pick up and drive over to help them out. And this time it's not a battalion. This is where it's like, you know, a squad, a couple squads of Marines, which isn't that many, right? And so, and it was in the same location as that very big fight the first day. Now we're back in that same area, and instead of a battalion of Marines, you just have a couple squads of Marines that are under attack by a whole bunch of insurgents, right?
Yeah.
And but again, these Marines were just experienced, and they were able to fend them off. And I was just trying to survive. I wasn't out there running and gunning. I wasn't out there laying a bunch of cover fire with my weapon. I was literally just trying to keep Rex and myself alive and do what I was told, which was take cover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And let the other Marines handle business. And I was, you know, we were there. I observed it. We were in the middle of it, but I never felt like we unnecessarily put ourselves in dangerous positions irresponsibly. You know what I mean? So it was just a constant. It was just constant. It was constant action, constant stress, lots of stress, right? There were some days where we would just clear like a whole block, like blocks of the city at a time, right? Like door to door type stuff. And Rex, this is where I pushed him to his limits because it's hot, and he needed to last hours, sometimes all day, sometimes all night, whatever it is. Now, of course, I wouldn't push him past his limits. I would push him to the edge of his limits is what I felt like I was doing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I kept, but we would be out there for hours at a time. I've like several hours at a time. And you know, I mean, that wears on you as a person, but the dog, you got to be especially observant and aware. And so there were times where I give him lots of breaks, lots of water. I would throw him up in the vehicles so that he could rest, and then take him out when he was needed so that he didn't have to do as much walking. But I felt like I pushed him, and we would literally, the Marines were kicking down doors, door to door, like that whole David Bellavia story, right? Like,
Yeah. House to house. I think. Yeah.
yeah, I was with the Marines who were doing the same thing, just going building to building, kicking down doors. And then when they would secure the building, I would enter with Rex and clear the building of explosives or caches, you know? But that by itself, well, that whole scenario is dangerous, but something that as a dog handler that you're aware of that other Marines aren't, there's glass, there's all this debris and shit all over the floor that could cut and injure your dog. And so, but I was prepared. I had the dog booties to throw on Rex's feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in those moments, they provided protection for his paws, because there's all this glass on the ground and debris everywhere. And so I threw those on him. Yeah, I didn't throw those on him very much because I knew that he was already hot and I didn't want to make him more hot. So I
Yeah.
just threw him And then as soon as I could take them off, I would take them off. But it's those little things that that proved a big difference. It helped them last longer, you know? And yeah, but that's what it was like. It was just constant. It was constant. And the thing that really kept me going was the Marines needed Rex and me out there. They needed the value that Rex brought to the table to be with them. And so I was going to go as long as they needed, or until we couldn't go anymore. You know, I don't know. It's just, yeah, I feel really lucky to have made it out of there.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I was going to say, like, but even, that sense of commitment and duty to your fellow Marine. I mean, like, you find one ID, that's a Marine that's going to keep his legs. You just, even one single find is life changing for your fellow Marines. So, um, and like, we've all seen the footage from Fallujah. I've never been there myself. It looks fucking close. So it's like tiny suburban streets, right? Hence the house to house name from the book, and you guys kicking doors. What sort of proximity did you get to the enemy? Did you ever have to take life?
um, I was face to face with the enemy on a couple occasions, but I always had Marines around me, and they would handle business. Uh, I, as far as I know, I personally did not fire and hit an enemy. You know what I mean? Um, because when that situation happened, Marines were all over it. Because and actually, I wasn't even aware that they were there. And like, because I'm watching Rex, and these guys are right there, and a Marine points it out, and I look up, and I'm like, oh shit. And then by the time I finish saying, oh shit, there's already a Marine handling business. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And
big time. Yeah, yeah.
because I had spotters. So one of the things I learned that was really valuable for me and Rex is having Marines to watch my back while I'm focused on my dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And because when I'm working with Rex, when Rex is working, I'm paying attention to him. I'm not as observant. I mean, yes, I'm observing and aware of my surroundings, but not as much because I'm more aware of Rex. So I would ask Marines, hey, when I'm searching, I need you to be my eyes and keep my environment uh secure, you know? And they did. So yeah, they that was a really valuable thing to have, was to have what we call spotters while we conducted searches. And but no, in terms of I only fired my weapon once really that I could recall. And it was really just kind of firing at um a blanket of enemy in the distance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't any in any kind of capacity where it's like I can actually see what I hit. You see what I'm saying? Um, all the as crazy as the activity was around Rex and I had my Beretta, was a Beretta or a Glock, my pistol in my hand all the time when I was searching. I never really had to use it because like the Marines that I was with were just so on it. They were always so on everything that was happening around me. And I just let them take care of it. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, death and killing and injury, that's sort of day to day for somebody in Fallujah, especially like anywhere in Iraq in that period of time. Did any of that stuff bother you, or you were sort of just like, part of the job, I know what I'm here for, kind of thing?
Yeah, it bothered me a lot. It bothered me you know, but you have to compartmentalize a lot of your emotions, right? This is where the human nature of just being, you know, Marines can train you to fight wars and train you really good at fighting wars and being in combat. But as a human being, you kind of have to internally deal with shit on your own, right? And I would see Marines would get killed or they would get traumatically hurt. And they're right there in front of my face. This is a guy I was talking to just the other day, or whatever it is, or maybe I even knew him, and now he's wounded pretty bad, or whatever it is. Yeah, that stuff bothered me tremendously. But I think one of the other things that bothered me is seeing the suffering of civilians who have nothing to do with this stuff, like the kids, and and the conditions that they have to live in, and we had an interpreter, this woman, work with our unit. They killed her. They followed. I built a relationship with this interpreter, because she would come and work on the gates of the base. And so when I wasn't out on patrols, I would be on base at the gates with Rex. And so I would work with the interpreters who were at the gates, and they ended up killing this woman and her family after they followed her home. And when I learned of that, right, it's like, well, this woman, she was bilingual. She was an English teacher before the war had started. So she was just trying to do good and provide help by communicating with the people in and the US troops that were there. And her life was taken for nothing, right? Just because she was associated with us. That stuff bothered me a lot, but what am I going to do about it? Like, what am I going to do? Right? I can't, I'm gonna wait to deal with that when I get home, I guess, was kind of my mindset. Like, in the moment, I feel really bad about it, but I know that is not really gonna help in that moment being there. So I'm just gonna try not to think about that stuff and just continue to focus on what I need to do to survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's kind of a good point that you bring up. In my experience and a bunch of other people I've spoken to, it seems like sometimes the things that bother you are the things that you weren't expecting. Um, so me personally, right, I was expecting a lot of violence. I was expecting death and injury. So when I saw that sort of stuff, I was just like, at least for me, I was like, well, I know that goes in this box. But for you, say that lady who was the interpreter, you're just like, that's something I was not expecting at all. I'm not really sure what box to put that in. How do I fucking process that? So, like, coming home from a deployment like that, are those the sort of things you thought about?
Well, yeah. And yes, there are things that I didn't expect to see that I saw. Dead kids on the side of the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or kids that were amputated from bombs or whatever. You know what I mean? Having to see that type of that is forever in your mind. You can't unsee that, And yeah, I thought about that stuff all the time, even to this day. You can't, it just creeps up, or something reminds you of it or whatever, And it's kind of like a I don't want to say sickness, but it's like this energy that sits with you forever, right? It's just this energy that is there, that doesn't feel good, but it's there, and it's part of your life experience. And looking back, it's like, well, how could I have helped or changed or whatever? And maybe there's just nothing you could have done. That's just how things were going to play out no matter what. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of just I try and channel that kind of energy into good energy somehow. You know what I mean? I try and go out and do things that make me feel good. I try and go places that make me feel good, and see things that make me feel good, and be with people that make me feel good, to help keep that energy that I don't like out. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
big time. Yeah.
later in life, I didn't really know what made me feel good. As weird as that sounds, I'm just kind of going through life when I get back. And I came to realize, like, I love to visit national parks and nature, and experience new cultures and country. Like, it makes me feel good to travel to places that I think are beautiful or that I've always wanted to see. And that's helped me out a lot, you know, and because I live in Los Angeles, and I'm very grateful for all the things I have in life, and where I live, and just basic necessities in life. Because I know that out in a lot of part of the world, people are living in conditions that are just horrible, right? They don't have basic sanitation. They don't have access to food. So I try to remember how good I have it. And I like to go to places that make me feel good as well. And that's kind of just how I deal with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, massively, man. Yeah. And I think, like, we've all got so much bandwidth, right? You can't, like, you got to focus on something. And for you, I guess you're sort of like, well, I can focus on Fallujah. I can focus on things that I saw and experienced and didn't like, or I can fill my cup with national parks, gratitude, connecting
Look,
with your guys,
I,
dogs,
I,
anything.
I don't want to, I'm not trying to be a victim of anything, you know. I signed up to be a Marine. I wanted to be a dog handler, and everything that came as a result of those decisions are a result of decisions that I made, right? And so I don't regret any of that stuff, right? Yes, some traumatic and terrible things happen, but that was the nature of what I signed up for, right? And so I accept that I made decisions where I put myself in these positions. You know what I mean? And and but life goes on, right? You got to live you can't let these things keep you down. And you know, my circle of people has shrunk considerably in my life because I can't be around negative energy, you know. The more you live life, the more you realize how much you value good energy in your life. You know what I mean? And so I connect with people that I can relate with, or that I know are supportive of me. If you're not bringing that energy into my life at all, you know, it's just I become almost too good at cutting people out of my life uh because I need to protect my mindset and my energy, you know. And I've worked too hard to get to a place to where I feel good to lose it, you know what I'm saying? And because
Big time, man. Yeah.
you could very easily and quickly get out of that place if you put yourself in a position around people or that get you out of that place, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, massively, dude. Yeah. Like a friend of mine says, I'm cutting people out of my life like an Olympic sport. And I think it's a good thing, right? Like we've all got so much energy and bandwidth and so much life as well. Like, fuck, it's going to end one day. Like, did I spend it with fuckwits, or did I spend it with good people that made me feel good and feel better? So I like that mentality, man. I like it.
yeah. And you know, I look back on those times, and the good that came out of those times were I met some of my closest friends to this day. You know, Marines that I never met, who I met in combat, are now some of my closest friends in life, right? And I'm glad that I'm glad that they're in my life and that they're still alive. One of my best friends was killed. A dog handler, Adam Can. He was a Marine that I trained together with, that we were great friends with. We were super tight. He deployed after I did with his dog. When I was getting out of the Marine Corps, he had deployed, and he let me, so I was living in the barracks on the base, but when I was transitioning out, he said, "Hey man, live in my apartment," because he had an apartment off the base, "and take care of my stuff, and I'll see you when I get back." So I was living in his apartment, in his room, in his bed, when he was killed, right? And uh and he, you know, he was a great guy. And I think about it And of course, I'm very sad about that he passed, but I'm also very happy for him because he died what he loved to do. I knew that he was doing what he wanted to do in his life at the moment when all that happened. Now, of course, I'm sure he didn't want to die, but he was in a position to where he was doing exactly what he wanted to do. You know what I mean? And like me, he was trying to find purpose in life, and he had found his purpose in being a Marine dog handler. And I feel very honored to be able to know someone like Adam Can and these Marines who I knew who didn't make it back. You know what I mean? So I really value those relationships tremendously. Like they're everything to me, actually, as those relationships that I had in the military, in the Marines, you know? Because there's something about connecting with people who understand where you're coming from, who understand what you went through, who understand, just the energy that you have because of the circumstances you went through. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm really honored to be able to know some of the best people I've ever come across in my entire life, you know, and being a dog handler in the Marines was probably the greatest experience in my life, you know? And so I really valued that time. Yes, a lot of traumatic shit happened, but like I said before, that came with the territory. That's just part of the business, you know? All you can do is control what you can control, which is your training, your mindset, and how you deal with these situations. You know what I mean? So I feel proud of myself for how I handled most of the situations that I was in. But most of all, I feel very proud of Rex, my dog. Like, I was really confident in Rex, but there were some things I wasn't as confident about in him. For example, how he might react to gunfire when it happened, right? Because we hadn't had a lot of training with gunfire. And when that did happen, he was amazing. He was great. He was everything I needed him to be. So I'm very proud of Rex and the dog that he became, and for saving my life, for just kind of being, not only finding IEDs and weapons, but also just being the dog, the confident, amazing dog that he was. Yeah, he was great. I feel honored to have been his handler, and what a life experience that was. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I got him. This is him right here on my arm. I don't know if you can see.
Nice. I can see it. Yeah, it's good.
So I got him right here.
So, dude,
Because
all
he
that in
was
mind, right?
he
Oh,
was
sorry, go
always
ahead.
he was always on my left side at the heel, right? So he'll always be at the heel right here. You know what I mean? On my arm.
Yeah, I like that, man. I always like to know a little bit about the meaning of people's tattoos. So that's actually a really good one, man. Um, so, dude, so post Fallujah, obviously you go back to what was the name of that city again?
Mama Dia.
Mama Dear. Um, Back to normal. I'm sure you guys had a bunch more experiences, wounded, gunfights, IEDs, that type of stuff. Um, Coming back from that deployment and then staying at your mate's place, what was the impetus for you getting out of the Marines? And what was the transition like as well?
Um, there was a lot of things. Um, my dad had just died. I was really close to my dad. And when I came home, he had passed away. And he told me before he passed away, first of all, when I deployed, he was dying from cancer.
Yeah.
And when I deployed, he told me that he was proud of me, and he said some really beautiful things, right? But he also said, if you don't need to put yourself in danger, then don't. He said, do what you need to do, but don't unnecessarily risk your life. You know what I mean? He's like, because I want you home. But also do what you need to do. Anyways, so when I came home, he was supposed to have passed away while I was gone, but he survived. And I got to see him one last time, and then he passed away. And again, he told me, if you don't have to deploy, or if you need to deploy again, basically he didn't like that I was in war, right? That I was going to combat, but he also knew that that's where I wanted to be. So he respected that, but I could just read his energy when I came back from deployment. He wouldn't tell me don't go again, but I can just tell from his energy he didn't want me to go again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, big time.
But separate from that, I was really lucky when I was deployed. I was in a lot of firefights. I had bombs go off. I had a sniper try and hit Rex and I, and he missed, right? I had an RPG right over my vehicle with the Marines that I was with. It just went right over, and it could have went right through my door, and it missed, right? I had a lot of close calls, but for whatever reason, that's all that they were, close calls. Now, when I came home, I was still kind of contemplating what I'm going to do. Am I going to stay in? Am I going to get out? All that stuff, right? One of the Marines that I became really good friends with on deployment, the very last day that I was there, I was supposed to go on one last patrol, and I got pulled from the patrol and instead was sent home. Like, I got sent to go meet up with the other dog teams and start the process of going home. On that patrol, they got hit. That vehicle that I would have been riding in with Rex was blown up. And the Marines in that vehicle were wounded. They weren't killed, but the Marines were wounded. But the blast hit my seat that I was in, that I would have been in, but it was empty, Now,
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this happened because I had left the base that day. But my buddy, when he got back home from his deployment and he was wounded in that blast, he took a video cam. He had a camcorder on the dashboard that he would record. He would press record sometimes. So after that blast, and after they secured the area, he took the camcorder, recorded what happened to the vehicle, and he sent me the video when he got home and said, "This is what happened that day that you left, in the seat that you would have been sitting in, And when I watched the video and I saw that, I kind of felt a message about how lucky I was, right? Like, just somebody was looking out for me that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I struggled with that because I didn't really know how to process that, of why I was so lucky. Like, why was my good buddy Adam killed? And I was lucky to come home. You know what I mean? After all these close calls, like, why me? Why was I allowed to come home? And so I just felt that kind of messed with me. That interaction of seeing that and knowing that, I just decided that mentally, I wanted to check out of the Marines. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of other stuff going on, but I just made the decision that it was probably best for me to get out. So I got out, and I was going to do the private contractor thing. I was going to get out of the military, be a private contractor, and go make a bunch of money overseas doing that. But then when I thought about how lucky I was to survive, and then I started thinking about the guys who were private contractors when I was in Iraq that were killed, I just decided that I didn't want to put myself in that position for money. Like, I was there in the Marines to provide a service and help those Marines, and I was happy to do that. But I decided that I didn't want to go put my life at risk for money, and that's why I had a lot of friends that were contractors, and that's great, and that's fine. I'm glad that they came home safe and sound, but mentally, I didn't get to the place to where I wanted to do that anymore. So I got out. And when I transitioned, in some ways I was lost, in some ways I was happy to be out. But I think what kept me going was staying connected to the Marines that I served with. You know what I mean? Staying connected to them. I actually had to come back into the Marines. So I got out in 2005. I came back in 2008, and I served 2 more years because when I got out, I was still in the Marine Reserves, or
Yeah.
it's called the IRR, Inactive Ready Reserve. And so I went back in from 2008 to 2010, and my job for those 2 years was to work with the Marine Corps Wounded Warrior Battalion in San Diego. So my whole job was to take care of all the Marines that were wounded and recovering from their wounds. I was taking care of them. And so I got to see firsthand, you know, what happens in war. All these guys are going to they're changed forever. They are missing limbs. Some guys lost their battles with mental health. And I was right in the middle of all of that for 2 years. And I was just trying to be there for them when they needed help, because while they were recovering in the hospital and getting healthy, they might need stuff taken care of. Hey man, can you fly my family out to come meet me? Or can you go get my car for me? Or can you take care of my house or my bills, or whatever it is they need? That's what I did for them. You know what I mean? And then they became friends of mine. A lot of those guys that were wounded at the hospital and recovered, I'm still friends with a bunch of those guys today. So the transition, I'm still transitioning to this day. I feel like the transition goes on all the time, and you just find ways to survive, really. You know what I mean? But I don't want to just survive. Like, I want to be happy in my life. So I feel like I've seen a lot of traumatic shit. I feel like I could have been a statistic with the veterans, right, of losing my battles, but I found ways to continue on, to stay connected, to be positive, and to do things that I love to do. And that's what keeps me going, you know? So, and I've learned to love my life and love who I am and what I'm doing, you know? So that's what I protect. That's why I keep whatever bad energy out, because I don't want anything interrupting that hard work that I put into myself over the years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. And so when you got back in the Marines and you were hanging with all the wounded guys, um, at that time, was that something that was more traumatic for you, or was that sort of very motivating for you? You were like, I feel a lot more purpose now to sort of help these guys, or you're like, fuck, you know, this is terrible, and that's what my mindset is.
All the above. You know, it's traumatic, but also I feel inspired at the same time, because these are guys that are single, double, triple amputees, but they're finding ways to thrive in life. These guys, they're not letting these traumatic injuries keep them down. In fact, they're not only recovering, they're out there doing triathlons. They're out there doing all these adaptive sports. Some of these guys stayed in the military, and it's inspiring to see that type of inspirational recovery. And so it's traumatic to see these guys go through what they're going through, but I'm also very proud of them for, the people that they became and how they handled their situations. And it makes you just feel so proud and honored to be around them, because we went to war. They fought in our country sent them to war, and now their lives are forever changed, and their families, right? But people don't know that. People don't see that. They just see the news. They don't, unless you know personally someone in the military, you don't mentally really understand what guys are going through, what the result is, and these guys have to live a different way for the rest of their lives. So my perspective on it was, I just wanted to, just like I wanted when I was deployed, be there for the Marines with Rex and do what I needed to do for them. I want to be there for these guys because they gave it all. They risked their lives and they gave a part of themselves forever, uh, physically and mentally. And so, if for whatever reason they need they need to connect with me to help them get through to tomorrow or whatever, I just want to be there for them. You know what I mean? And so I was really honored to be around them. Yeah, because they're the true heroes. You know, these guys are these guys that sacrificed it all. I just felt tremendously honored to be around them and to help them and to support them and to be friends with them to this day, to be honest, you know? And actually that when I got out of the Marines in 2005, I wasn't really connected to the military veteran world. I was just off doing my own thing. I was connected to my friends from the military, but I wasn't really involved in veteran stuff. I wasn't really connected very much. It wasn't until I worked with these wounded guys for a couple of years where I really got connected to the veteran community and have stayed connected ever since. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's been part of my life forever.
Yeah. Matt, I want to just take a real quick break because then I want to get on to post-service, working in the Hollywood, that type of stuff. So just give me 1 second. We'll come back, bro. All right, dude. Thanks for taking a break, mate. So before we had a quick break, you're obviously talking about working with your wounded Marine veteran mates. That's obviously had a big influence on you. Is there any reason you did those 2 years and then got back out again, or was that just a contract sort of thing?
I only had to do 1 year actually. So they were recalling, the Marines were recalling Marines out of the reserves in 2008. Some of my good friends got recalled. And when you get recalled, you have to do what they tell you to do. You got it. It might not be, for example, if I got recalled, I might not be a dog handler. They might assign me to go fill a job that isn't very fun or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I found out that there was a high probability of getting recalled, I found out that you can search for orders out of the IRR, which I did. And I found out about they needed staff at the Wounded Warriors unit. So I voluntarily took orders to work with the Wounded Warriors because I didn't want to risk getting recalled and then getting assigned to do something that I would have probably hated to do. You know what I mean? So but I knew that I love San Diego, the city of San Diego. And so I went to the Naval Hospital in San Diego. I knew that I at least would enjoy being in that area. Now, I had no idea exactly what I was signing up for. I didn't realize just how impactful that experience was going to be for me. Now, after when my 1 year of working with these Wounded Warriors was coming to an end, they gave me the option to extend for another year. And I took it. I said yes. I extended for another year because I loved these guys. I loved working with them. I loved being there to support them. And I felt like I was good at working with them. So I worked there for 2 years. And then at that point, I could no longer work there. I had to be, after the 2 years were up, I had to go somewhere else or I had to get out. And so I ended up getting out a second time and decided to go to school. I moved to Los Angeles. I went to UCLA's production program, their certificate program, and I learned production, like entertainment production work. And then when I finished that, I just started working in the entertainment industry in various ways. I got to work with the Veterans Affairs Department of VA on some of their video campaigns that they launched. I helped them launch those campaigns. And then I worked at some media companies and I got to be a military advisor on some movies and TV shows and just kind of bounce around the entertainment industry for a while. But everything that I worked on from a production standpoint I would say like 99% of everything I've worked on has been related to military or veterans, or, so it's been great to leverage my experience and background with my work. And so that's what I've been doing. And I'm still doing that. Well, all the strikes with the writers and actors kind of threw a wrench in things recently, but I'm still here, still in it. And it's been fun. It's been it was a completely different change of pace and lifestyle. I got into it because one of the Marines that I was taking care of at the Wounded Warrior Battalion, when I was one of my roles was to help these Marines with their transition plan. What are they going to do when they get out of the Marines, when they get medically retired? And one of these guys said, I want to go work in entertainment. And when he told me that my time was coming up to get out of the Marines as well, and it just kind of sparked an interest in me. And it was one of those things where I decided this is something I'm interested in learning and being involved in. And I want to stay in Southern California when I get out. And so I moved to LA, went to school, and that's what I've been doing since.
Yeah. Can you give us a couple of titles that you've worked on, like a project you've been involved on that someone like me might know?
Sure. My most fun that I love the most, it's called it's on Netflix. It's called Medal of Honor. It's a 8-episode docu-series, and you can watch it right now on Netflix. It came out in 2018, and I was an associate producer and military advisor for the whole thing. And it's about Medal of Honor recipients. They chose 8 Medal of Honor stories to portray, and that's what we did. And I think it's great. I loved it. So I got to work on that. And and then I got to work on Will Smith on his film Emancipation, which is about him being a slave that fights for the Union Army in the Civil War. I got to work on that. I got to hire hundreds of veterans to reenact the Civil War battle scenes. So that was fun. And then, yes, those were some interesting, fun. And then some not so like some projects that don't involve famous people, but I'm still very proud. So, for example, some of the first ones that I worked on were for the Veterans Affairs. They launched a mental health campaign called Make the Connection, and another one called the suicide crisis line. We made a whole bunch of videos to make awareness about these programs and support for veterans, and I got to help with all of that stuff. So it might not be a Will Smith or whoever, but they make an impact in the world that I live in. You know what I mean? And so I'm proud of that work. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you just contract your services to like a production theatre, for example? They reach out and go, hey, we need X, Y, Z, and you go, I'm your man.
Yeah. So I'm a freelance at this point. It used to be, I used to work for a media company and I was employed and full time, but then I left and I just contract out my services at this point.
Yeah. You didn't have anything to do with that movie with Channing Tatum, Dog, I think it was.
No, I had nothing to do with that one.
Yeah, okay. The only reason I ask is because a previous guest, the episode I was telling you about where the technology was just killing me, that guy, he worked in that movie. And I thought, I wonder, maybe just in case. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all good. My screen just turned blue. Did it turn blue for you?
Yeah, I can say it's like a blue light. Your whole face just lit up, man. Some sort of, what are you doing over there?
I didn't touch anything. I have no idea why it's doing that.
It doesn't matter, man. 99% of people just listen to this in their car anyway. So,
Are you sure? Yeah.
It looks funny. It looks good.
Isn't that weird? Let me.
Bro, it just went even more purple.
I'm gonna stop the video and then restart it just to see if that works. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. Do you think? You're still purple. It's like it doesn't matter. Like I know that as soon as I mentioned technical difficulties, the techno gods would just be like, strike a curse upon you, Tom. and your podcast. So it's all good, mate.
I'm sorry,
You
man.
just look,
I don't
you
know
look
what to
like
tell you.
Grimace with a beard.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. No, I didn't have anything to do with that movie with Channing Tatum. It's all good. Like, these people are making uh, productions around the dog community, and as long as it's supportive and positive, it's all good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Have you done much like military dog consulting, or just sort of general military consulting?
Only a couple of times. There was a documentary I just helped out with briefly it's called Glory Hounds. It's a great documentary about it followed these dog teams in combat in Afghanistan. And they did a great job. But I also worked on a TV episode of the show NCIS. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, they did an episode about a military dog team, and I was the advisor for that episode. And then there's a documentary that I'm in called Always Faithful. It's about Marine Corps dog teams. We just tell our stories. It's called Always Faithful. It's probably on Amazon Prime. It's a fun little documentary that they did about Marine dog teams that I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Because obviously you're passionate about this sort of stuff, right? You love it, otherwise you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, anytime I can help, I'm passionate about the military dog community, the veteran community, and anytime I feel like I can provide value to people in telling our stories, then I'm all about it. You know what I mean? And so it's been great. Yeah, I've had a lot of good, interesting experiences working in this industry.
Yeah, awesome, dude. And what's the future looking like for you then? Are you just happy to stay where you are, or you've got some big plans for next year? What's the go?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm happy with what I'm doing and where I'm at right now, but I also I have other goals and things I might want to do outside of this industry. So we'll see. I don't know. We're constantly evolving and growing as human beings. I like to feel like I'm constantly growing and in a positive way. And so there's other things besides the entertainment business that I might be interested in, but we'll see. I don't really want to talk about those things until I'm full on.
Yeah, sweet, man. No,
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, we'll probably wrap it up there, man. But man, I've had a great chat. That was very illuminating. Like a lot of the stuff about Fallujah, I didn't sort of realize some of those things, and especially some of the parts about you, like you having to clear that bridge where the contractors were, and yeah, that was fascinating, man. So thank you so much, bro, for coming on the podcast and mate, for being open and honest about your story too. Like I know um, sometimes it's not easy to recount some of these things or to share your story. So I very much appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And anytime I can connect with a fellow dog handler like yourself and talk about these things, I think it's always a good thing. It feels therapeutic to me, and you never know who's listening and who might relate to what you're talking about that's been through similar experiences. I'm just one story. There's lots of great handlers and dog teams throughout the years, I was really fortunate to tell my story through my book, Sergeant Rex, and because I wanted to honor Rex. He was such a great dog, and he deserves to have his story told, and I'm glad I was able to do that for him. So yeah, I'm just really grateful, honored to still be here, and to be able to have conversations like this with guys like you.
Yeah, and you've just corrected me. I forgot to mention the book, mate. Give us a real quick rundown on the book, and because I know that Rex went on and did some other stuff after you'd finished handling him. Um, can you give us a rundown of the book and when did Rex pass away?
Yeah, so the book is called Sergeant Rex, An Unbreakable Bond Between a Marine and His Military Working Dog. I was really fortunate to have an author named Damian Lewis reach out to me. He was interested in doing a story about a military dog team, and we just, we connected, and I agreed to work with him because I liked him and I liked his previous work. And so I'm grateful that he reached out, that he was interested in telling our story. And that's what we did. And yeah, I was so Rex did a career in the Marine Corps, and he served longer than I did. He served for 10 years in the Marines, and he deployed 3 different times. I was his first of 10 handlers, right?
Shit. Okay.
Yeah, he had 10 handlers. I was his first. And I took him on his first deployment, and it was a tough deployment for him. So, well, all his deployments were tough. His last one was very tough. He got wounded, and but I'm glad he survived. And I'm glad that he was able to do a whole career for 10 years. That's all. I mean, what an amazing dog. 3 tough tours. He was wounded, and he did a decade of service. I mean, what an amazing dog. I love him so much, He ended up passing away. He retired and was adopted out for about a year, and passed away just, from medical issues and whatnot. And he passed away in 2000, I think the winter of 2012, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, but he lived an amazing life for a dog. He lived an incredible military dog life. And I just feel it's one of the biggest honors of my life to have been his handler. So yeah, I love Rex to death. He's great. Yeah.
Where are his remains now?
He got adopted out by another handler in New York, and that's where his remains are. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Hey, Mike. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, he's on the East Coast. When I got out, I stayed on the West Coast, and I got to visit him all the time, even though I was no longer his handler, And then when he retired out, one of the handlers who lives on the East Coast adopted him out. And so which is all good, because I got to see him through much of his life here on the West Coast, Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I imagine a fair bit of closure in that sense as well. So, hey, Mike, mate, like I said, thanks so much for coming on, dude, and sharing your story, bro. It's massively appreciated. And I'll end it there, bro. So yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties here at the end.
Bro, it's normally me, so don't stress. It's all good. I'm surprised my screen didn't turn purple and go upside down or something. So, all right, thanks, mate. Catch you later.
Okay, thanks so much.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of the Origin Canine podcast. Tune in next week for another episode. In the meantime, go to origincanine.com, check out our safe, innovative, and built-for-purpose canine equipment.